Good afternoon. Friends, family, loved ones, enemies, contributors, distractors. This is Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. And this week's show is called uh, Rodney Hinton, An Eye for a Blind Eye. And before I get into all of this, I'm going to say Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Special Happy Mother's Day to my mom, Grace Lewis. And, we love our parents and we love our mothers. We love our fathers, and we always want to acknowledge them whichever way we can. So, Rodney Hinton, An Eye for a Blind Eye. Now, I want to discuss not the particulars of this incident. I want to talk about the ramifications that I've gathered or that I gathered from the circumstances that surrounds this incident. I don't like to talk about particular incidents that happen. I want to talk about why things happen and what can we get from the things that happen or the circumstances surrounding the incidents that happens. That's what my show is about. I'm not here to talk about news events. I'm not here to do that. I want to break down news events and talk about why these things happen and why these things continue to happen, or what does it take for us to stop these type of things from happening. So that's what I want this show to be about. There's been a lot of talk about this show on both sides, from blacks, from whites, other people that's not black, you know, um, and it's all over the place. So, what is the incident that I'm talking about? For those that don't know, what happened? Um, there was a father in Ohio whose son was killed by the police officer by the police. His son was probably allegedly involved in some illegal activities with a vehicle, maybe stolen vehicle. Um, the police surrounded the vehicle. The people that was in the vehicle ran, the son being one. They chased him down. They said he ran behind a dumpster or something, and they said that he had a gun. And when he came out, he was gunned down by the police officers. The family was allowed to see the cam footage of the police officers. And allegedly, the cam footage did not show what the police officers were saying happened. Of course, a lot of things that they're going to say is going to justify their shooting or using deadly force. So the father allegedly feels like it was not justified. And he goes out and he kills a police officer, a Hamilton County Sheriff officer. I believe that was directing traffic at some location. I believe he was actually a retired police officer, retired, but uh, maybe he was in uniform, whatnot. Like I said, I'm not really here to discuss the particulars of this incident. I'm talking about the, the circumstances of the incident, where revenge is taken for one's murder of one's family member being murdered. And some people are saying it's just, some people are saying it's not justified. A lot of people are saying, well, why didn't he go after the cop that actually pulled the trigger on his son? Um, but let's discuss this. Let's have this discussion, not about his particular situation, but overall the bird's eye view of it, if you will. Um, Questions people say, well, what sense does that make? He's not getting revenge on the cop that shot his son, or that he feels killed his son. It's not the same cop. And I think by it not being the same cop, this makes it a different type of situation and different ramifications. Because to me, this is not an individual issue that we have been facing in this country as Black people or minorities in this country. But I'm mainly saying Black people because I think we face it more than anyone else, or have been facing it more than anyone else in this country. When we look at a problem, you look at it, is it an individual problem or is it a systemic problem in this country? I have been submitting to you for as long as I can remember about systemic racism issues in this country and being able to identify systemic racism type situations. Now, more recently, or just as recently, we had the cops, the Memphis cops that was on trial for the black cops that was on trial for committing a murder against a black individual where he ran from the car and they chased him down and they basically beat him to death. And they were saying on their uh, with their camcorders with their the police video quarters cams being hitting from what's happening. You could hear the audio of them saying stop reaching for my gun and whatnot and all these things like that, or they were telling him to obey their commands. They were yelling it out. All the while they were beating him to death while he was handcuffed. And we know this because it was a camera, unbeknownst to them, that was videotaping the incident from a street recorder. So they were yelling all these things out while saying, stop resisting, put your hands behind your back, stop reaching for my gun. All the while they were beating this man to death, and they didn't know that that was that video that they were trying to hide from being was being recorded behind them. Yet and still, these police officers were vindicated and not charged. I believe I don't know the charges that they actually got, but and I try to tell people and what it is they're going to say. Well, these were black officers, and I say this is systemic racism. How can that be? These officers was black. The victim was black. This is systemic racism. It doesn't matter the color of the individuals perpetrating the action that the system has allowed to happen. They put you in a position as a police officer to where you are above the law when it comes to us. This makes it a systemic situation. I'm not talking about the individuals involved. If those police officers were black and the victim was white, I believe the outcome would be different. This is why I'm saying this is a systemic racial issue or problem. As long they don't care, the system doesn't care who carries out its agenda. But the agenda is to have blacks in a more submissive role, in a victimized role, and anyone that carries that out. I don't care if it's gang members, if it's black on black gang crime, then you're playing into the system. The system has created this culture. The system has created these circumstances for us to operate without the system having to actually put a hand in the situation. Malcolm X told us they will have one of us kill one of us just to say that it was one of us that killed one of us. This is how the system operates when it comes to us being victims. It doesn't care. It will put the drugs in our neighborhood and we will be selling drugs to each other, but that is the system at work, not the individuals at work. If you look at this a systemic situation or a problem in an individual as an individual issue, then you're not going to understand the systemic powers that be that is pushing this or creating the atmosphere for everything to take place. What I'm saying is that this government, this system has created situations to where we don't value each other and others don't value us. So therefore, when one of us is getting killed or murdered, whether it's by other civilians or by the police, it is not that big of a deal. Those that watch it on TV, they're not as a part. You may be a part, but you're not as a part of this as if it was other people involved. That's not black. The victim is black. I don't care who's perpetrating the crime, because the system says once you put on that uniform, you can operate above the law, especially when it comes to us, not to them, but when it comes to us. So even when one of us put on that uniform, they think less. They have us thinking less of each other. That's the system. This is what I'm saying. Some people can't digest that when I'm saying it's still systemic racism. Well, they're the same color. It's still the structure system in this country allows things like this to happen and allows them to get away with it. So it is a systemic issue. But many of us can't see the forest because of the trees. And I know the saying says you can't see the trees because of the forest. But I'm submitting to you that many of us, we can't see the forest because we're looking at the trees. And we looking at each tree individually as representing something that's happening. Then when that tree is chopped down, we're looking at another tree. And meanwhile, we can't see that there's a forest. Many of them do not see that there is a forest. The forest is the history of this, the systemic value of this. They keep looking at each case individually. Well, this is what that person did. Well, maybe that person should have followed the command, or maybe that person shouldn't have ran, or maybe whatever it is. But you keep looking at each individual tree and not realizing there's a whole forest. The forest is the systemic issue that I'm talking about. It transcends eras. You could go back as far as you want to remember of police, the police system in this country, and it has always treated us differently up until recent times. We have people that always want to have an opinion about the incident, but they don't want to have opinion about the solution to the incident or why the incident is happening. And you could break down each individual incident, but you're going to be breaking down thousands of incidents continually. And this is why I say I don't talk about the individual incidents. I'm not talking about the tree. I'm talking about the forest, the systemic forest that we are needing to look at to solve the problems that we are facing in this country. This is a system, an idea, and a mindset that has been prevalent in every police station in this country. I don't care if it's a big city, a small town. This has been an issue that has been ongoing in this country. I don't care if it's from the north, the south, the east, or the west. We have these type of incidences happening. So it's not the individuals that's involved. It's a culture in this country. It's systemic. It's institutionalized racism. That means that the problem is in the fiber, it's systemic. That even if we are the police officers, even if whatever position, we would look at each other, the system has us, because the systemic part of it is educational. It's in the media. They're controlling how we even think about ourselves and each other. They control how others are thinking about us and each other. So now they devalue us. We devalued in the system. We devalued us in the media. There's no value or a lesser value of us when you see an incident happen. That is because it is institutionalized, which means it's in the schools, it's in the religion, it's in the judicial system, it's in the church. I don't care. It's incorporated in the fiber of this society, and it transcends eras. Now, even if I go back and I ask someone, they said, well, he shouldn't have killed the cop, and that doesn't justify anything or does anything to bring his son back and all this. I'm gonna ask you this, individual. What do you feel about Nat Turner? What do you feel about what has happened with Nat Turner? Nat Turner on August the 31st, August the 21st, 1831, his revolt began. So what happened with the revolt? He was a slave. He led a revolt against the system. He didn't just say, well, I'm leading a revolt against my slave master. He killed 55 white people, or he was responsible. He was the leader of a revolt, a slave revolt. that killed 55 white people, 55 victims, men, women, and children. You could say, well, and I'm asking, do you see that that's justified? Do you understand it? Is it understandable? Or was he a terrorist? Was it not justified? Many of us speak as Nat Turner as some type of hero, a hero for the rebellion, someone that is standing up for the injustices. But what about the women and children that wasn't of his plantation? That wasn't the one brutalizing him as an individual. When he went outside, he killed his slave owner, and he killed the family. But then he went to the next plantation, or they went to the next plantation, and then they killed the people that was there. They were leading a revolt. Children, everyone, women. Some people say, "Oh, well, man, he's a terrorist." Like the other side, they think he's a terrorist. They thought he was a monster. He was heartless. Some people think what Rodney Hinton did was heartless. He's the monster. How do you see Nat Turner? Was he fighting a system, or was he fighting his individual battle? Was he going to free the slaves of other plantations, or was he just looking to free himself and kill his slave master and the overseer and just get up out of there and try to make it back up north? Or was he trying to fight a system? In the aftermath of that, Nat Turner went into hiding. They were ambushed. His clan, they was ambushed. Some of them was killed and some of them was captured later. And he was captured months later. I believe he was executed on November the 11th. I believe that was the date. They chopped his body. They lynched him. They chopped him up, chopped his body up into pieces. But along with that, everyone that was involved in that revolt, they were captured and basically they were killed. But along with that, an extra 200, up to 200 black people, additional black people that had nothing to do with that revolt, they were killed in the aftermath because people were angry. The white people were angry that this happened. So they tightened down and they killed a lot of black people. And some of them they probably killed because they were probably torturing them, trying to figure out, do you know anything about this incident? So people that had nothing to do with the revolt, they were killed. 200, up to 200, from 100 to 200 slaves were killed after that, in the aftermath. He didn't have 200 rebels with him. He didn't have that many. Those people had nothing to do with it. They killed the people that was involved, but then they killed the additional 200 people. This is America. If you see a Jewish person and he kills a Nazi soldier, do you blame? And you can say, well, that Nazi soldier wasn't even where the Jewish person's family was being killed at. The Jewish person, his family was killed in some concentration camp. And he escaped and and he saw a German Nazi soldier and he killed him. Do you excuse that? Do you think America will excuse that? It's understandable. Yeah, that's understandable. Because he's not fighting the individual that pulled the lever or that captured his wife or children or his parents. He's killing a system. He's fighting a system that was put in place to kill his people or to capture his people and subject them to whatever they wanted to subject them to. But people won't see a problem with a Jewish person killing a Nazi soldier. It doesn't feel the same. Or is it? When it's a systemic issue that deserves systemic ramifications. If it is treated as an individual incident, it will die with that incident. And many of our situations are dying with the particulars of that incident. This is a problem. Understand what I'm saying. If you're not treating a systemic problem, you're treating it as an individual incident. That's why I'm not worried about what was happening, with Rodney Hinton and his son, and what did he do? Because I'm looking at DeForest, I'm looking at Tamir, I'm looking at Trayvon, I'm looking at Oscar Grant, I'm looking at Sandra Bland, I'm looking at thousands of incidences. I'm looking at Emmett Till. Even if I go into the history of this country, when I said it happens at every era, when one incident means that all of us that in the community paid for it. When Rosewood incident happened, when they burnt down the town of Rosewood in Florida, when the whites converged on the town, other towns around Rosewood. Rosewood was mainly white, and then it was abandoned by whites, and the blacks it was a black town. And they started doing something what was left over that town, and they built their own community. But one incident sparked white people to come from all around and converge on Rosewood and burn down homes, killed people. They shot people and women in the face. They killed the kids. The kids was running. The black people that survived that, they ran to the swamp where you had snakes and alligators and things like this. But why? Because one incident allegedly perpetrated by one person caused many people to either die or have to flee. Because this country doesn't operate on an eye for an eye. When it's one of their eyes, if they believe it's an eye, then it's an eye for all of them. That's the MO of how this country has operated. That is the history. When you talk about Black Wall Street, Tulsa, one incident, a white woman alleging that this black man not raped her, but in the elevator, he was an elevator worker. She was in an elevator. She claimed that he made some type of advances towards her. She reported it. They arrested. Of course, they're going to arrest him. And then the lynch mob came. They were above the law. Now, the hell with justice. The hell with our justice system, is meaning in America. We want this person lynched. And when they went to lynch this person, the black people were trying to defend him like, no, let justice take its place. Like America's supposed to run. Y'all have the audacity to stand up to this lynch mob? You being black? So they told more white people, these uppity niggas are trying to stand up and protect one of their own. They protecting him from a lynch mob. Let him face justice. What actually happened? Let's see. No, they bum rushed it. And then what was happening? They burnt up the whole town. They destroyed Black Wall Street. The whole community paid for an incident, alleged incident. This has been the MO of America. The blood summers of 1919, 1920. What they call the race riots. What was happening was, it wasn't race riots, it was a racial war against the black communities. Breaking out, and they have been breaking out from 1901. If I brought up Rosewood and Tulsa, these are the incidences that was happening. They saw one opportunity or one alleged incident, and they took the opportunity to attack the whole town or this whole section of town. This has been the MO of America. You could go down the line. You could talk about Waco. You could talk about Beaumont, 1945, I believe. 1943 in Beaumont. Every incident that you could look up in this country of racial rioting, or what they would call rioting, but it was a war on black people. Atlanta, it doesn't matter. Every town in Chicago, Detroit, up into the 60s, it's one alleged incident or one defiance of white supremacy that led a convergence on that town or that community that everyone had to pay for. You look at Mary Turner's lynching, because she spoke out about them looking for her husband and lynching her husband. She was pregnant. She didn't have anything to do. Sharecropper was murdered. They didn't know who did it. They just think that some black person did it. So they were looking for 14. They didn't care. And then all of us had to pay. She spoke out against it. She said her husband had nothing to do. He fled town because they were looking for him too. And she said her husband had nothing to do with it. And she spoke out. They lynched her. If you don't teach your history, instead of hiding it and trying to bury your history, you would learn from it. You would learn that this is how America has operated, and that maybe you should look at that and say that that's not the way it should be, that many people have died by or from one incident, and the person that committed the incident, if they did commit it, if you let them, but they came and they got the whole time. If you learn for that and say, well, that's not just, and you learn that this is how America has treated us, then you wouldn't be speaking out in the way you speak out when you see that these things are continue to happen, because you're not fixing the problem. You're trying to bury or hide the problems that have happened in the past, and they are continually happening today. I brought up not ancient history, but I brought up history going 100 years ago or whatnot. I could go to, it's called, it was the HBO had a special probably 2 years ago, I think. It's called Boston Murder, Roots, Rampage, and Reckoning. And if y'all, it's still on HBO Max, if you want to look it up, you can look it up on YouTube. And this is something more recent. It was 1989, modern day America, where Carol Stewart, a pregnant woman, was murdered. And the husband, she was shot in the chest. The husband was shot, but it wasn't a lethal wound. And he reported a black man tried to jack us, me and my wife. Oh my God, he shot my wife. He made us drive to the black side of town, this black ghetto area. And he robbed us, and then he shot us. He shot her in the chest. And he shot me too. I survived. This was the story. This sent Boston into a frenzy. The husband, Charles Stewart, pregnant wife. They showed pictures of them in their wedding, her in her wedding gown, and him in his tuxedo after the wedding. And they were, look at this poor white family. They tried to, she was still living when they brought her to the hospital. And they tried to do a C-section, it's a cesarean section, and take the baby out. And the baby died later that morning. So everyone's hearts was heavy. What ensued after that? It was open season on the black community. If you look at the documentary, one of the black people in the community said, man, it was just open. The police was slamming black men on the hoods, or they was kicking in people's doors without knocking. It was just open season. Humiliation, whatever. They found, and what he did, what Charles Stewart said, he said the black man was wearing a warm-up in the back in the early 90s and late 80s. Of course, we was wearing, a lot of black men were wearing Adidas warm-up, Nike warm-ups. We still today. So what they did, they saw a warm-up in the sink where the guy had been washing it, and they arrested him. They posted his name up. They put him in jail. The police was abusing him. And he actually was saying he couldn't sleep in jail, waiting for his trial. A man has been arrested. That was posted all over. They had arrested another man, but he was acquitted because he wasn't, he was released because he wasn't even in the area at that time. They thought he may have been the one. He had a record, and maybe, so let's make him a prime suspect. Maybe he lives in this area. Maybe he's the one that did it. And it didn't match up. So they released him. The other guy that had the warm up, they arrested him. They had him, they posted his name all on the news. Police has arrested this man in suspicion that he the one that killed Carol Stewart. He couldn't sleep in jail because every shift they woke him up. They was banging on his cell door. You know, he couldn't sleep. So he was being deprived of sleep. He was being tortured without having bruises on him, psychologically. He couldn't get sleep. Then he couldn't eat because they were spitting in his food, the guards. So now he's hungry. He's deprived of sleep. This is how they treated him without getting a guilty verdict. Then they find out the husband is the one that shot her. He didn't want the baby. He didn't want the marriage anymore. So he concocted this whole scenario and put it on a black man, taking them. So he drove her over there and he shot her in the chest, then shot himself. They kind of had, you know, questions about his story because things wasn't adding up, but they still allowed. And all I'm getting into with all of this is the MO in America, that when something happens, the police treats everyone. It's open season on black people. They're throwing us, they're stop, what they call a stop and frisk. It went wild. They were stopping black people, pulling them over, stopping them walking, no matter what. And they were frisking them, they were looking for a murder, they was looking for somebody. And it had to be a black person. And lo and behold, within, Charles Stewart ended up killing himself and leaving a note because everything was pointing at him, and they started saying, wait a minute, his story isn't adding up. This wound is like it's self-inflicted. Why did the person shoot her in the chest when he was the biggest threat? Why didn't they shoot him first? If you have a man and a woman, if you're going to shoot, why would you shoot the woman? The man can fight with you. She's pregnant. She's 8 months, whatever. She's pregnant. You'd shoot the biggest threat first and then go from there. But that wasn't the case. So they had ideas. But I'm saying this is something more recent. This is the MO. This is why psychologically black people, when they see something happen, they always say, I hope he wasn't black. When they don't know if who the suspect is, or somebody's doing some crime on TV, and they'll say, man, I hope it wasn't black. The DC sniper, the first, oh man, he's black. Why? Because that's embedded in us, because we pay for what one black person do something, they make all of us pay. There's a reason for that. This is psychological. This happens in the military. Any of us that's been in the military will tell you. Anyone that you know that's been in the military will tell you. You look at movies in the military, Full Metal Jacket. One person get caught doing one thing. The whole squad pays for it. Why do they do that? This is called peer pressure. They want them to get you right. They could punish you, but no, you got the burden of everybody else is being punished for the mistakes that you're making. And this makes everyone else correct you after drill sergeant leaves, drill instructor leaves. They're going to have and then I believe in the movie Full Metal Jacket, they call it a blanket party, where at night you got a bunch of your fellow soldiers. They throw the blanket over you, and they hold the blanket down. You can't move, and the rest of them, they used to put soap in the socks, and they'll hit you. And all of them would come through and hit you. And all of them had to partake in it. So it was everyone partaking in this punishment thing, not some of them and some of them not. This is the peer pressure that they put on you. Somebody makes a mistake, everybody pays. They're gonna know. They know the person that made the mistake, but they make everyone pay. That's called the peer pressure of it. Why? What the military is telling you, fix the problem. We're telling them they know what he's doing, fix the problem. The police should be fixing the problem. America should be fixing the problem that we've had to endure for over a century, since the emancipation. They should be fixing the problem. Fix this. This is the message that I said. When you're fighting a systemic issue, you don't have, if you make it an individual problem, but by you getting any cop, just like they would do with us, that makes them have to recognize, I didn't even do this, but your actions can have me in jeopardy. That puts a new spin on everything, because now you're looking at the problem in a systemic issue. Fix your department. Fix America. America, Fix your police departments. Stop sweeping these incidences under the rug. This is the message that's sent. The same message America has been sending black people anytime they allege that an incident. Emmett Till was killed because a lady alleged that he whistled at her. They beat him to death, threw him in a creek, fractured his skull, every bone, broke bones in his body. And it wasn't just because, and then they wanted to send a message to everyone else. And this is the MO that has constantly been happening in this country. Some of us haven't even looked at the white woman or said anything, but they made an example. And sometimes they made an example out of the perpetrator more than the perpetrator. They needed to make an example out of everyone. More of y'all are going to pay. We will not tolerate this. Let me read some of y'all comments. I know I've been going on this tangent. I apologize. And I have comments. I appreciate Aisha Ray showing up. I appreciate Sakina showing up. She said, I'm going to say, well, alaikum assalam to you, sister. I appreciate that. And Richard said, what's up? I appreciate you checking in. Lede, appreciate you checking in. Leslie Robinson, she said, none. They were tied in a predominantly tried in a predominantly white court. She's talking about the police officers in Memphis getting off. And this is the thing, I'm gonna say this. Remember, they say blue lives matter, right? See, they can't keep that blue lives matter and then convict black police officers. See, it's not a black and white thing once they're in the uniform. It's the uniform, the blue life. You're no longer a black life once you put that uniform on, and you're operating within their system. You're using the things, the tactics that they have taught you, individuals, not so much the police force in general, but individuals that's put on that badge. They taught you how to get around all this video cam stuff. You know, don't put the camera on, just have the audio on, hide the camera. They have so many incidences where police officers will say, stop reaching for my gun. And they will be hiding the camera or turning away so you can't see it, but they're operating this way. And the guy have his hands on the steering wheel. It was videos. I used to share those type of videos to show people this is how they operate. So when it goes to court, the police, they hear the police say, well, they're saying, stop reaching for, he was reaching for the gun, but say they don't know that somebody else is videotaping it. And it has been cases where the individual has gotten off, but the MO of them shouting this has gotten police officers off for doing wrong. That should have told you that there's a problem in your judicial system. Correct your problem. But you continue to let them get off. Now, some of them may, get convicted here and there, but a majority of them are getting off. And that's sending a message to them that they are above the law. Police officers are not the law. They are part of the law, the judicial system. They should not be above the law. They don't get to be law, judge, jury in the execution. But in many times, that's what they are with us. I appreciate saying Leslie showing up and Sharon Simpson Anderson. She said Hotep. Leslie said it's designed for us to fail, talking about the system. And Richard D. Mitchell said exactly on point. They will employ a black man to execute another black man in a position of power, or they are not moving how they want them to, supporting their agenda. I appreciate that. And Sakina, she said, both Nat Turner and Rodney were bringing attention and willing to die and fight against and bring attention to an unjust evil system. Although things may not change, the evil is exposed. I appreciate that comment. That's 100%. And that's what I'm talking about, addressing a systemic issue. If you go after the individual that did this, and maybe sometime, but you're making it an individual problem and an individual solving of the problem, and then the problem disappears because you're not addressing a bigger systemic issue. And that's what I appreciate with that. So my thing is fix it. This is the message that's being sent. When you don't go after the individual, you go after someone because they're not going after individual. It was not personal what the police officers are doing. It's not personal when they're going after Sandra Bland. It's not her personal. It's personal with them. It's part of they're part of an agenda. They may see you as a certain way and they may treat you in a certain form and fashion. And even when it's not deadly, even if you're in the medical field, you'll see them treating black people different than they will treat somebody else. Them treating Hispanic people different than they will treat someone else. You see these MAGA people treating us in a different way because we are delivery drivers or, we FedEx or whatever. Let me see your car. They're treating them different. So fix it. And maybe this is a message to them. This is a bigger message than the individual because someone else's actions can cause you to be randomly in jeopardy because you're wearing a uniform. I've said this, it was an incident where a white person was wearing a jacket with the swastika. He's a white supremacist jacket. When someone sees you in the black community, you're automatically a threat. You haven't done anything to them that you know of, but you're wearing the uniform of a people that have committed atrocities against our people. It was a black girl that was stabbed by a white supremacist off of in Oakland, off of the train station. She was with her sisters, and the guy got off and he targeted them. And he stabbed her and killed her. He tried to stab the others, and he took off. And he had it perfect. He had a scheme, and it was cameras, so he had on a hoodie and everything. But what he did, he ran into the parking lot. He changed, put that stuff in his backpack, and he had another outfit. And he walked in. He came and started giving information about where the other person may have ran or what happened. And then after a while, they figured out it was him. But when you're subjected to that type of hatred, somebody killing you that don't know you, they got to understand. Just because I don't know you don't mean you're not wearing that uniform of people that are perpetrating against us. This is a father that just watched his son die. And people say, well, he should have been a better parent. So you could say that. I don't care about the individual. I'm talking about, so all of these things, Sandra Bland, her mother should have been a better mother. Whatever you want to say, Tamir Rice playing with a BB gun outside. How many white kids play with toy guns? How many of us grew up with BB guns and all these things like this, and him being murdered within 2.4 seconds of a cop arriving at the scene, and he can't distinguish that this is a kid, that maybe this kid is not really a threat. But I've seen videos where white people get out their car. I just posted one the other day with an AR on the traffic stop. The guy jumps out of his car, points the AR at the police. The police puts it in reverse because he fears for his life. He pulls back and he goes back, and the guy gets back in the car. It's a car chase. The guy gets arrested for speeding, and of course, the weapon towards the police, but he gets apprehended. They didn't fear for their life when they were arrested him after he pointed it at a cop for no apparent reason but other than getting a ticket. But when they stopped him, they didn't concoct no thing to say, well, my camera, they wasn't that mad at him, but he was taken into custody. Incident after incident, Dylan Roof. I'm gonna go incident after incident. We can always find why is it that we have to give an explanation for ourselves being murdered? Because they're charging accusations that's not addressing the problem. They're not addressing the problem. When I look at people's comments, some of us are falling into that. That's fine. I understand ignorance is a terrible thing. Stupidity is even worse because you're not looking at the bigger picture. Sometimes you need to take illegal measures to fight a system that continue to operate in an illegal manner, in an illegal and an unjust manner. With Nat Turner, many black people see him as a hero. He was fighting a system. You could say, well, you could look at the individuals that he killed. Well, what did this person do? This person wasn't on his plantation. They were part of the system that he was fighting. It's systemic. Racism was, slavery was systemic in America at that time. You got somebody that was subjected to it, that was fighting that system. You are part of that system. You're upholding that system. You have the privilege of that system. You are on the other side. You are my enemy. Because if I let you go, you're going to be the one that tells them, yes, it was him, lynch him, and this is how awful he is. Casualties of war. And I believe Rodney Hinton declared war, at least on sending a message to one of them. Because in this country, along with that, see, white privilege is being above the law. That's what actually white privilege is in this country, being above the law. We as Black people and minorities have been below the law, not just subjugated to the law, but white people have been above the law or feeling that they have been above the law. Whether they are police officers or civilians, they have been above the law when it comes to acting against Black people, brown people, yellow people, red people. You know, even if you look at the jailhouse lynchings, anytime someone was arrested, if they alleged that they did something against a white woman, that was their MO of saying, oh, this is the precious Jew, the white woman. He did something against a white woman. And then that's going to make all of them gather and have a lynch mob and not care about the law. The law in this country is that you're innocent until proven guilty. Or at least that if you are arrested, you're supposed to face a judge and maybe a jury of your peers. They want to supersede that. They like, no, he's down there in the jailhouse, release him. Many of us have been murdered or lynched on street lamps, taken out of the jailhouse, lynched, because they have made their mind up. They don't care about the law of this country of saying you have to go before a judge and find out if you're innocent or guilty. Or the judge is going to determine your punishment if you are guilty. No, civilians, they want to be jury, judge, and execution when it comes to us. I don't see that happening when it comes to one of them. It could be one of them that committed a crime and they know it, and they're going to let them go before the judicial system and let things happen the way it should happen. But this is how the privilege of white people has been established in this country. And what they start seeing is that slowly matriculating, we have been getting some justices. And they don't care about the injustices. They care about us getting some type of reprieve. Well, O.J. Simpson was guilty. He should have went to this. Well, what about your judicial system that you claim is the best in the world? If it got him off, been getting some of y'all people off for the longest. You know, they killed Medgar Evers. They didn't, you know, the guy got off of that. You know, it's been happening for the longest that some of y'all been getting off. But if it's somebody, one of us that you deem was guilty, and you figure the system isn't working the way you want it to work, so now you're above your law that you brag about, your judicial system that you claim is the best in the world. So now you have to make America great again. That is saying we want our privilege back. We want our privilege restored back to a time that we can operate legally or illegally. So what's been happening over the years, the legal system has started to balance out a little more. And they don't like that. They like the scales being unbalanced in their favor. They don't like you having a voice and being able to speak up, because we used to have to look down to speak, whether they had authoritative position or not. They were in a position of authority where we had to watch what we say and how we said to them or about them. We are not in those times anymore. So now they have to make America great again. They want that privilege restored. Talib Mustafa said, fight fire with fire, not cotton. I appreciate the comment. So what is this telling us? I did a show a couple of weeks ago talking about being expendable. For your children, you should be expendable. Are you disposable or expendable? Expendable. I am expendable when it comes to my family. That means they are above my well-being and all of that. When it comes to protecting someone that I'm with, someone that is in my family, I make myself expendable. Rodney Hinton made himself expendable. He knew what he was doing. He wasn't trying to get away. He wasn't trying to flee to another city and all of this stuff. He made a statement. He made a bold statement. He put his life on the line. I read today that they're talking about trying to charge him with the death penalty. I knew that. He could have died at the scene because another cop could have said, well, yo, could have fired on him. But he had in his mind that this is how you're going to pay. Not as an individual, that individual is paying, but just like all of us pay, all of y'all are going to get this message. You are not untouchable. You are not unreachable. You are disposable if you continue to operate. Any of you, police your own police force if that's what you deem necessary. They don't just deem it necessary. It's like a cleaning crew. You're a cleaner and you don't clean your own house. You charging other people about how they clean, how their houses need to be cleaned. You're an inspector. Let me put it like that. You're a cleaning inspector. You go around and you're inspecting people's homes or whatever. Then you come home and your house is a mess. Clean your house. Police your own. Police your police force. America. As high up as it go. As an individual police force in whatever city you're in, police your own. I have friends that say, well, they're joining the police force or whatever. That's fine. But sometimes I have friends that join the police force and they talking about the blue shield and they change. Then you're part of the system. You're part of our problem. I don't care what it is but you're talking about the blue line and not crossing the blue line, and they don't understand us that's wearing the badge, then you're part of them that's wearing the badge. Therefore, you're part of the system that has been killing us. You're wearing a Nazi patch on your jacket. And what I was getting on with the Nazi patch, the guy, after this incident happened in Oakland, a black dude, a white dude was like, hey, and he was trying to explain, the black dude just hit him. It's nothing for you to explain. You're wearing the uniform of those that have been killing us sporadically in this country. They don't care if you're killing a kid, if you're bombing a church full of girls, if you're stabbing a girl that coming from a party with her sisters, a teenage girl. You have no sympathy. You're working with malice in your heart towards us. If you're walking into a church, Dylan Roof, he had the same uniform on. These things, you're shooting people that's sitting there praying with you or welcoming you in. Just like sinners, they welcomed Dylan Roof into their place, and all of them got killed. Well, most of them got killed. A beast. This is what you're working with. So you have to take the problem as a systemic problem and attack it as a systemic problem, not an individual problem. And we have to see it as that. So when these people sit here and talk, and some of these things I wanted to say when I was seeing the comments and I was seeing some of these privileged people say these comments, make these comments, well, he was doing something illegal, right? And I wanted to say all of this. Sometimes America is doing things illegal to us. Sometimes we had to pay when they allege that someone of us did something illegal. Sometimes everyone's house got burned down. Everyone's business got burned down. People were dying because it was a whisper that somebody that looked like us did something wrong. And Rodney Hinton, he didn't whisper. I appreciate everyone that showed up. Kevin Lewis on the Blueprint. Peace.